Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Along with me is Mike. Mike, how you doing, sir?
Hey everybody, I'm doing all right. How about you, Reed?
Doing okay. Football season. Purdue's off to a good start, so I can't be too mad about that. Bears kick off relatively soon here, so I'm excited about all that. But we're gonna jump in a little bit today into the weeds a little bit here, Mike. And I think with this, we are not referencing anybody in particular. Okay, so when the topic we're going to dive into, we're not talking about any particular channel. We are not doing this to call people out or anything like that. It is just an observation that you two, me and you, as comic book nerds, have had for a while, and I think it'd be interesting to see what folks think about it as well. And in this as well, we are not saying that things that folks are bringing up in videos like this are not happening. You and I have both made critical and negative videos as well. But Mike, I will say this and then kick it to you and just let you go with your 2 cents on it. There is a ton of negativity around the coverage of comics. The type of videos that typically succeed are, and I'll even say for me and your small channel, if we write a title on here that goes, "Hey, this new X-Men comic is good," low reviews. If we put "X-Men suck," higher views. And again, you and I have done the negative videos. So I'm not saying we haven't. Me and you try to reserve those for when we really feel like something is broken. But Mike, there seems to be an absolute trend of negative, negative, negative to the point that it almost seems like, and I don't know, I've experienced this in my own life. Have you ever gone to a movie when you're in a bad mood, Mike, and you just weren't in a good mood and you end up not liking the movie very much? But it's like, you know what? You could put the best movie ever on. I was in a bad mood and I was looking for something to be mad at, and you just pick it to pieces. I
And
feel
then
like a lot of that happens.
2 years later, it comes on TV and you watch it. I'm like, hey, it's not so
That's not
bad.
that bad.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so I'll kick it to you, Mike. How prevalent do you feel the overall negativity from comic coverage is? Do you think it's justified, unjustified, exaggerated? Where are you at on the whole thing?
Well, I mean, this is one of the reasons you and I decided to start the channel because, I felt that there needed to be a breath of fresh air in the YouTube world of comic books because it was so depressing and negative and Um, I feel that as a YouTube channel, like you said, you have to chase the clicks where you get them and the views where you can get them.
Mhm.
And everybody wants to see that it was a disaster and tell me it was bad so that I can, tell my friends it was bad too, and we can all talk about how bad it was.
Yeah,
Um, I have known people in my life um, that they weren't having a really good time unless they were telling you about how bad the time was that they had the time before. And I think it's part of human nature, more so with some individuals than others. But um, you know, it's so prevalent, and I think that's why it's important that we get more positivity out there because there's some great comics out there like Conan and Redcoat we were just
Flash
talking
Gordon.
about,
Yeah, no, and I think even
Flash
the big
Gordon.
two has put some good stuff out there lately that's been fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean the Ultimate Universe,
Absolute
Absolute.
Universe is doing well.
So I mean you got to take the good with the bad. And we're critical on some of the decisions that the big two make. And I think out of frustration, at least on our channel, it comes from a place of love.
No,
Can we just
we've
say
done a
that?
lot of negative videos on the
Yeah.
X-Men. I will flat out say there's nothing that will make me happier as a comic. Well, not outside of Batman, but in the comic book realm, if they'd get X-Men right again,
I
I'd be
know.
I'd be one of the happiest fans you could find with it. And so I think that's where some of that comes from. Um, the weirdest thing to me on some of the negativity, and again, I want to make sure I isolate this into different things. There is genuinely some things to be upset about. There's genuinely some things that aren't good. I think there are some writers, creatives, and editors, executives who have bad intent, who write comics not for fans, but instead to express a worldview and condemn certain people because they're ticked at them. And if people call those out, I got zero problem with it. What I will say is we get stuff that comes out now that's not that bad. And instead, it's like, this is awful. This sucks. Here's this isolated panel, and this is how crappy it is. And the weirdest thing for me on this, I see so many videos where people spend so much time trash talking how bad comic books are. And it's like, it just doesn't seem in alignment in that, like, I'm just going to say this. And again, if you're a fan of it, good for you. I hate soccer. I don't like soccer. I find it boring. I respect the heck out of people who have the endurance to play the sport. I understand it has skill. I find it boring. You put a game on, I'm going to fall asleep. You know what I don't spend a lot of time talking about? Soccer. If a soccer conversation happens, I genuinely dislike it. I think it's boring. I don't spend a whole lot of time talking about soccer. And yet, these
Yeah.
people who will be the comic book industry sucks, the comic book industry is going bankrupt, the comic book industry is terrible. They'll spend all day talking about the comic book industry. And it's like, it just seems out of whack in it. Like, for something that's so crappy, you'd think it'd be like, hey, man, I'm just not going to talk it anymore. I'm just not going to. It almost seems what's happened. I think, and I think if you watch some of the videos, you see it too. It's transitioned to don't give your money to those companies, give your money to me. And then I'll review the comics for you. I'll make that sacrifice. And then you can tell me how great and it's just, I think some of that happens. And I don't get why that's so prevalent with comic books. Because what I'll say, I found myself, and I had to do some self-examination on some of this too, and that Spider-Man is a book that has infuriated me for years. I've been frustrated with it and unhappy. This new run of Spider-Man comics has not been bad. And there was a part of me that was reading the issues going like, I don't want to like this. And then you're like, man, this is actually pretty entertaining. And in honesty, if I wasn't so mad about crap that happened 3 years ago, I'd be enjoying the heck out of this. And I think that's some of what's happened is I think we have folks where there's a little bit of bitterness that, and again, justified in some cases for sure, and
Mhm.
that Marvel and DC they earn some of the scorn. They hired people who were very explicit about the fact that I don't like comic books. I don't like the character. Like you'd get creators to come out, and I think DC's making a huge mistake with this new Red Hood series they're making, where they had the writer come out and did an interview, and the writer was like, "I really haven't read much of Jason's adventures before," and it's like, look, if you if that's true, that's fine. Don't say that publicly.
Yeah, there's an archive section in the office there. You can go
do,
and
do a Wikipedia or don't answer the question or don't advertise that. Do something different. But
yeah.
you'll get these folks now where it's like, and I think the MCU did this. They'd hire directors where they're like, oh no, I've never read comics. I can't stand comics. And it's like, look, say anything else. Like that might be the truth. But it's sort of like in any other business, if we talk about football a lot in here, if the Bears would hire a coach who's like, you know what, I don't really like the Chicago Bears history. I don't know anything about it. I don't know who the greatest player of all time is. It's like, even if that's true, don't advertise that. Like that's the dumbest thing you could do. Mike, do you feel like the companies have earned much of this negativity? Do you think it's overblown? Like, how do you think comic book fans have always been passionate about stuff, but do you think it truly is like the comic companies made people that mad, or do you think there's a bit of exaggeration that happens as well?
I think there is a bit of exaggeration. And case in point, like for example, I try and be careful with the media that I do consume because I don't want it to overshadow um, my experience. I want to be able to discern on my own. Did I enjoy it? Did I not? And I find this a lot with the movies, but it happens with the comics too. You can get you can be doom scrolling on your phone looking at the new superhero movie and the reviews and the trailer comes out and I remember when the Superman trailer came out, it's like, oh, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah,
They got too many characters in it. It's going to have Hawk Girl. Nobody likes Hawk Girl. But you could, you know, and some of the kids did, they went down the rabbit hole of negativity because of all the only thing that gets views is negative reviews. And as soon as comic or a movie comes out, you get flooded on social media with all the negativity about whatever it is.
Mhm.
And it doesn't happen in just comics either. I mean, it happens in other stuff too. Oh, it's lousy, it's going to be terrible. Um, and that can cloud your judgment. Do try and read some of this stuff with an open mind. Do try and be a little more selective with your social media, and make sure that uh, people that truly love comics are making observations in a more balanced way, should I say, but more critical thinking rather than just not critical in a bad sense, but more analytical rather
Well,
than.
there's a huge difference between criticism that is designed to inspire change as opposed to criticism that is designed to like, no, I want to see this thing burn. And I think we've had a few folks now get to with comic books where it's just like, and again, I am not blaming folks for being angry. They have made some stupid decisions. They have ruined characters. They have made choices that just flat out confound me as to how we even got to that place.
Yeah.
However, comics is something that I'm rooting for. And that's the weird thing is, look, you and I think, again, probably get tired of sports references, but look, there have been years, and I'm a Chicago sports fan. My teams have all been bad for a really long portion of my lifetime. Be that
I
the
do.
Blackhawks, the White Sox, the Bears, the Bulls. Outside of the Michael Jordan era and the early 2010s Blackhawks, I haven't seen a lot of good sports teams. And there's been times we've had athletes that have been terrible, that don't try hard. But what's interesting is, as a sports fan, there is always a part when a new season starts that, like, you know what, man, this year's our year. And I'm sure 6 weeks from now, when the Bears are 2-5 or whatever the record is, and my spirit's been broken by another Green Bay thing, I'll be negative on the Bears again. But I know in 2026, when the NFL season's about to kick out, I'm going to dust off the Bears jersey like so, be ready for the season, and be rooting for it to be good and rooting for it to be happy. I think what's happened with comics somewhat is there now seems to be a decent portion of folks where it's like, I don't even want it to be good. When they relaunch X-Men, no, there's nothing you can do. I'm angry. I'm upset. You're never gonna. And I think it's one of these things with comics where they're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I don't like cussing much, but I think that's really the only phrase I can think of that gets it. In that if they retell the classics, critics who don't like this stuff will go, man, they're so lazy. They're just borrowing from the greats. Do your own thing. They do their own thing. Why don't you stick to the classics? Man, these people are trying to reinvent the wheel and you don't need to. Right? If they take a major swing and it doesn't work, what an idiot. They're so stupid. How can you do this? If they don't take major swings, well, you don't give us character arcs. And I think that's where we're at with some of this stuff, where we have so much coverage and so much stuff out there where they can't win. And again, I am not talking about the deliberate, stupid, destructional stories that have happened from creatives who had a grudge with fans or decided, hey, it's more important for me to voice my opinion on the election this year than to tell a Batman story. But I do think we have a lot of fans now where it's like, or a lot of channels or just coverage where it's like, man, there's nothing they could do to make them happy. And I think that's a weird place to be in. And again, I'm not saying any fans, you feel how you feel. You're justified in how you feel. I do just think, man, it's so easy to get caught in the negativity of it.
It is. I would say take a break. Take a break from the analytical side of it and just, uh, go to your go to your local comic shop and ask the guy behind the counter, like, what are you reading? What do you like? And
Mhm.
maybe give that a try if you're looking for something new, something that's kind of, outside the sphere, the negative sphere of things. Um, and but there's good stuff out there. There really is. And don't let the media, influence you from not getting this or that. And for those that cover comics, I would like to say that the times that we've gone rogue, and I'll use rogue because I'm going to talk about X-Men in a minute.
Yeah.
It comes from a place of love. Like we really want X-Men to succeed. um, because we love the X-Men. And it just hasn't been a book that I've wanted to buy in 15 years. And that's
But
kind of
I'm
sad.
sure for some of these folks who are negative, they come from the same place. But I do the weird part for me, and this is where I started. Not, and again, I think there is negativity for sure that's deserved. But I'll say I can't bring myself to be like, man, the comic industry sucks. When every week you and I can do a best new comics video, and we normally have at least 6 to 7 things that are good. And it would
Yeah,
be the equivalent if I'm like, man, the NFL sucks. But oh no, there were 7 great games this weekend. But those are, it's like, I don't know that you can have that much content every week that you're like,
right.
that was good. And again, I think when me and you do best new comics and stuff, we're not struggling typically to find those. We've really only had, I'd say, in the 2 years that you and I have been doing this, I think there's really only been like 1 or 2 weeks where it's like, man, I don't really know anything good that came out this week,
I
which
know.
is it's remarkably
Yeah.
consistent if you try different things where you can find happiness with it. I think the other part, Mike, and this is the last part we can kind of touch on here. I think spoiler culture has ruined a lot of the impact of these comics as well.
Yeah.
Because, and you have certain sites, and I'll call out one, not to say they're negative or bad, if however you feel on that site is how you feel, but they're the most prevalent one I can think of. There's that site Bleeding Cool that
All
basically
right.
every week is posting all the major spoilers. They will sometimes in advance post stuff months before it happens. And I think the impact a little bit of that is gone. It reminds me a lot of, and this happens less and less now because of the internet, but I remember being younger and when I had to work, if a baseball game was on, I'd be like, I'm going to tape the game. I remember specifically answering the phone and being like, don't tell me what happened in the game. I haven't watched it yet, kind of thing.
Yeah.
We have now where it's the same as if I knew the ending to the game, I wasn't going to watch the taped game. If I knew,
Yeah.
hey, like in 3 hours, it's going to end the White Sox lost 4-0, I'm not going to watch the taped game. I think what we have now for comic books is the amount of panels that we get spoiled with very little context presented from whatever angle the person has, whether it's positive or negative. I think that's had a massive impact on comics because the huge investment used to be the surprise of the story. And I'll be honest, I don't remember the last time I read a book from one of the big two where I was genuinely shocked by something that happened on panel. Because typically, if you do comic book media at all, it's so hard to be surprised anymore.
Yeah.
What do
That's
you think?
unfortunate.
How do you think spoilers have impacted stuff negatively, Mike? Like, what do you think the perception of
Oh,
that is for fans?
oh, definitely. And you got to feel for the creatives behind this because, the work and the effort that they put into it, and then somehow it ends on the internet, 2 months before the book's published. That's a punch in the gut. That really is. Um, but yeah, you got to feel for the creatives because, they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't kind of thing. And they're trying to come up with something original and something fun for us to read. And to have it just come out as a spoiler before it's even on the stands it's got to be gut wrenching, because we, as comic book fans, we're used to, or we were used to, not being ready for what was going to happen on the last page to hook you to buy next month's issue. That was part of the fun of being a comic book fan.
Yeah, I think it's something where maybe just, and again, I'm not going to say we don't go negative. We probably will continue to do so at times when we feel it's warranted. I'm not going to act like we're better than anybody or above anybody. You and I have certainly done things where we overreacted. I think the Fantastic Four movie was a great example of you and I saw a lot of things happening about that, and we were worried. And I think in the end product, a lot of what you and I were thinking was going to happen didn't. I think the same thing with the Thor comic book that came out last week, or 2 weeks ago, where you and I were kind of doom and gloom on how that was going to be. And after one issue, to be honest, it's pretty good. Like it was a pretty good issue of a comic book. And I think sometimes maybe just what we hope can happen is maybe a little bit of a recalibration in terms of look, if you hate something and you're negative on it, voice your opinion. You should. Right. It's everybody should have freedom of speech and the right to say what they want to. But I do think comics has become a real unique place in that, man, you do not
It's,
have to struggle at all to find negative content. It's crazy.
it's tough to find the good stuff. It really is.
But let us know. What do you think down below? Do you think negativity from the creative space from fans, from different people. Do you think it's overblown? Do you think we're too critical on this? Again, if you think we're too critical on stuff, let us know. Again, Mike and I are not here to pretend we're experts or we're above anything like that. If you think we're being too negative at times, let us know in the comments. We're not going to take that personally or get mad or offended or how dare you or something. No, we appreciate the call outs when that happens, whether we agree or disagree. We just always love seeing what you guys think down below. As always, folks, hope you have a great rest of your week. If you're a football fan, enjoy NFL being back. God bless you. You have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.